really just trying to enjoy the simple things in life. Right? When you're younger, you think, what does that mean? That sounds boring. But as you get older, you really can appreciate, whether it's the birds chirping or the waves crashing or flowers blooming, just simple things like that bring you joy. But also being able to help a client be able to reach a resolution so that they can move forward with their life. That also, it always feels so good when you're able to help a client uh, find that resolution so that they are at peace with moving forward.
Welcome to the Verdict Signal podcast, where we feature how top attorneys help people make informed choices, avoid common mistakes, and move forward with confidence. Now, enjoy the show, and here's your host.
Daniel Gao here. I'm the host of Verdict Signal, and today we're expanding our conversations to the experts who protect what people build, their careers, families, and businesses. I have Kelly Gemelli, who's been an employment attorney for over 25 years, the last 5 years specializing as a neutral conducting workplace investigations and mediations. Kelly's focus is to help employees and employers identify and resolve workplace disputes. So Kelly, welcome and glad to have you here.
Hi, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's start from the very beginning. How did you first get interested in the legal field?
Yeah, I when I went to college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't have any lawyers in my family, but I when I went to university, I found that I was really drawn to political science classes. I thought the study of government, study of law was fascinating, and that's really what drove my interests into wanting to go further my studies and going into law school.
Okay. And what was it specifically that led you to focus on employment law?
Yeah, well, as soon as I went to law school, at that time, I still was undecided whether I wanted to do civil or criminal law. And so I did an internship. I was able to get an internship at the U.S. Attorney's Office. And there I had exposure to employment law. The U.S. Attorney handles civil type cases, and I had a couple of employment law cases, found them fascinating. And then when I got an internship or my clerkship or a judicial, not a judicial, but an internship after my second year of law school, I went to a firm that did a little bit of everything. They did. It was more just a general liability firm. And so during that experience, I was able to rotate through different departments. I did professional malpractice, insurance defense, general liability, personal injury, construction defect, and employment law. And when I rotated through the employment law department, I knew I'd found my home. So the cases were always so fascinating. It was like reading a novel. Always finding what the allegations were, and it had a very human side to it. Oftentimes, it was personality disputes or just really always fascinating facts to me, and so I was always fascinated by wanting to learn more about the case and to really do a deeper dive into getting to know what the facts were, and as well as why employees were upset.
Okay. Now, what's one thing that you really wish more people understood about working with an attorney such as yourself?
Yeah, I think attorneys have a bad name. Oftentimes I make a joke that no one likes an attorney until you need one. And so I get a lot of calls asking if I can help. And so I always try and be a resource to clients or potential clients that call. So even if I don't think that they have a matter that I can assist with or that I would be the best person to assist with, I will try and give them resources or other names of other attorneys within the community that they can call.
Okay. Now, my understanding is that when it comes to working with an attorney, trust is a critical component of it. And I'm sure you've gotten some people that come to you and want to and just need help, so they work with you, but they may be a little bit more guarded. Maybe they're not saying everything because maybe they're thinking that, oh, like you're a lawyer, like you're upholding the law. So if I did something that maybe wasn't quite in like perfectly in the law, that I'm going to get in trouble if I tell this to you. But in reality, it's really should be they should be sharing everything with you so you can represent them because you are really their advocate. Like, you kind of see that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and and I always try and be very candid with clients and say it's really important that I know all of the information and that you share the information with me because it eventually will come out, and it's better that I have the information so I can present it in a favorable way as opposed to then it me not knowing the information and then for it to be sprung upon me. So I am always a believer, and I think communication is really key. I learned early on that malpractice lawsuits, the number one reason for attorney malpractice lawsuits are because of lack of communication,
Mm.
where attorneys just go dark, don't communicate, don't provide status updates. And so my goal has always been to be on top of status updates and to try and provide those status updates or communicate with the client in advance of them reaching out to me to say, hey, what's going on with my case? So whether it's, if it's really active matter, providing those status updates on a weekly basis, or if something's taking longer, certainly on a biweekly basis. And even if nothing is going on in the case, just simply sending a status update to say, hey, letting still waiting on a response from the opposing counsel, but at least letting the client know that you're in their thoughts and that you're continuing to push through on their matter.
Okay. And I know when it comes to employment law, there's lots of different, I guess, sub areas that go into employment law. So, what would you say are some of the most common situations that clients come to you for? Like, what situation are they facing?
Yeah, so I actually started my career in litigation. I was an employment litigator for almost 16 years. And then I found that a lot of my clients were really utilizing me for advice and counsel. Companies would often call and say, hey, we want to roll out this policy. Can we do it? Or we really would like to do this. Would you recommend? Or I know there's a new law coming out. Can you help guide us through, help us ensure that we're able to do this correctly? My experience has been that employers typically want to do the right thing. They just oftentimes don't have the resources or the knowledge of what to do or who to call to ensure that they're doing it correctly. And so, after a while of doing that advice and counsel, working with employers, that's when I decided that I really loved the investigations aspect of looking into concerns that had been raised. And so I started my own firm where I would be able to represent both sides, both plaintiffs and defendants, companies as well as individuals, and then also conduct workplace investigations.
Okay. Now, what would you say are some of the most common misconceptions you hear from your clients, both the employee side and the employer side? Kind of the things that when you bring this up to them, they're like, "Oh, I didn't even know that this was a thing," or "Oh, wow, I didn't even know that was supposed to do this." Like, what are some of those most common misconceptions you hear?
Yeah, and I think that happens all the time, Daniel. Because it never ceases to amaze me when one person says one thing, how multiple people heard something different. And so asking everyone who was present what their perspective was, what they heard, I think is always crucial, and it really can help the other side understand why someone left the conversation not feeling great about that conversation, because they might have heard something different than you said or different than what you meant. So I think it's always really important to give the parties an opportunity to explain from their perspective what they heard, what they felt, because again, oftentimes the parties aren't aligned on what was said, what was intended, and how and what the outcome of that conversation was meant to be.
Okay, so clear communication um, seems to be kind of one of the biggest things that people just don't realize that how important it is in this.
Yeah, I think clear communication, and then also it's important to recognize people have different. Communication styles, but also just different personalities. So some people are very direct, and others are not as direct, and find those direct personalities to be rude, offensive. and the very direct people say that's not, they don't intend to be offensive or rude. They're just to the point. They've got a lot to get done and they want to get it done. And so again, finding that, really understanding where someone else is coming from, I think really helps be able to resolve some of those underlying workplace disputes or communication style differences.
Okay. And what would you say some of the biggest mistakes people make before they call a lawyer such as yourself?
Yeah, I personally, I think talking, stirring, creating unnecessary drama, stirring the pot, talking unnecessarily within the workplace, going to your coworkers. I think a lot of issues can be resolved if you were to just go immediately. If an employee has an issue, go report it to HR, go talk to someone in management. Make sure that the company is aware of your concern and give the company an opportunity to try and resolve it before you start talking about it with all your coworkers or colleagues. Or I always tell employees, give the company an opportunity first to try and resolve the problem. If you don't feel like you're getting a response or the right response, then at that point you can reach out. A good idea to reach out to outside counsel to help guide you through that process.
Okay. And thinking about the future with AI and AI becoming more and more important, I'm sure that this comes up quite a bit. You have people calling and be like, well, AI told me this or ChatGPT told me that. So, but you're telling me different. Like, who's right? Like, I'm sure you have a lot of people that's doing that. Like, what's the dangers of people relying completely on AI to get their advice or to get kind of like their step by step of what they should do? Like, what's the dangers of just relying on AI?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, everyone now thinks they're an attorney because ChatGPT tells them how to be an attorney. Yeah, you nailed it on the head. There's a lot of dangers in that because AI doesn't know. AI may be able to search the law, but it doesn't know the practical realities of how to handle a situation. And so I think oftentimes, and they also don't know what potential cases are worth because if you just throw into AI, hey, I have a personal injury claim, what's that worth? There's going to be such a wide range. Again, it really depends on a multitude of factors, not just if you suffered any injuries, but also what your wages were, how much money were you working, how much time did you lose from work, were you receiving benefits? There's a multitude of facts that really play into what a case, the potential work value of a case. And so when clients call me and say, hey, I think I have this, hundreds of $1,000s of case, and it's like, okay, well, help me understand why you think that. um, and they're not able to articulate those facts, that's when I know that they've been searching around on AI or chat GPT to try and get some information. But yeah, it's really really important that you talk with a seasoned professional because they're really going to be able to give you the best advice on not only a case's value, but also the best way to go about getting your case resolved.
Okay. And we talked about kind of those mistakes people make, but let's go on the other side of that. What are some of the few or smart steps that people can take when it comes to whatever case they're running into, whether it's again the employee side or the employer side?
Yeah, I tell clients all the time, the courts often apply a reasonableness standard. So act in a reasonable fashion. If you're upset with the way someone handled a situation, go talk to the individual, go talk to your manager. Again, get them involved, give them the opportunity to fix a problem. If you feel like you weren't paid the right amount for the right number of hours, again, go talk with your manager, find out why. From their perspective, what happened, what the problem was, give them the opportunity to correct the problem. And then again, if you feel like you're not getting the right response, that's the time to reach out to an attorney. But I always counsel clients, the most important thing you can do is go talk to your employer and let them know, hey, there's this issue. How can we address it?
Mhm. Okay, got it. Now, I want to dive deeper because in your introduction, you also do mediation. So let's kind of start off with what is mediation? Let's kind of start there. And then I guess what led you to get more into mediation versus just kind of representing one side or another?
Yeah. Well, mediations, let me just start off by saying mediations are informal, where the court, if you, two different types of mediations. If you have a concern or a claim, an allegation that you aren't able to resolve on your own, you certainly have the opportunity to hire a mediator, go to a mediator, and have a neutral third party mediate the dispute. So both sides would come to the table either with or without attorneys. If the parties are represented, the attorneys would also be present at the mediation. And the mediator is giving both sides the opportunity to be heard, to hear from their perspective what happened, why they were upset, why they feel they've been wronged, and just really give them the opportunity to be heard. And then also, the mediator works with the parties to try and figure out, okay, what is it that's going to make you feel like you can move beyond this? Okay. Is it a monetary settlement? Do you feel that you've been harmed monetarily? And if so, what's that worth? Sometimes an apology, right? Someone feels that they were uh, really upset by an act someone did, and again, having someone be able to issue that apology, oftentimes that goes a really long way.
Mm.
Now, if you file a lawsuit and you proceed with filing with legal action, oftentimes the court will ask the parties if they're interested in going to mediation, and so the parties can hire a third party mediator to try and resolve their disputes, so that way the parties are able to get resolution. Figure out the best path forward and not have to, because litigation oftentimes is very emotionally charged. Employees, I've seen it time and time again, where employees are very emotional, and it's just having to dredge up all that negativity. And so trying to figure out the best path forward so that employees and companies can figure out how to resolve the dispute is oftentimes the best path forward. No one likes litigation. It can be extremely expensive. With attorney's fees. And also, it's very time consuming. So, it's instead of time spent on your business, you're instead having to spend time going through depositions, going to motions, or attending trials. So, time wise, it's very time consuming and also very expensive.
Got it. Okay. So let's say that someone needs help from an employment lawyer, but they don't know anybody, they don't have anyone that can recommend to them. So what advice would you give to this person as they're doing their search so that they can find that employment lawyer who has the knowledge, has the experience, and can help them get the end result they're looking for?
Yeah, well, we're lucky here in San Diego. The San Diego County Bar Association has an attorney referral system service, and so you can Google San Diego County Bar Association referral service, attorney referral service, and you can plug in what information you have, what type of claim you have, and they will try and pair you. They give you a, I believe it's a certain period of time where you get a meeting with an attorney that specializes in that field, and I think that's really a great service because those attorneys are well vetted. They're relatively known within the community, and they're able to provide really quick advice as to what is the next best step for you. And oftentimes, if they're not able to keep your case, or they would be able to provide additional referrals for you.
Okay. And when it comes to this, let's say when people is trying to decide which attorney to go with, there's kind of like these two areas of them to consider. One is the likability, the connection, the trust, and the other part's the ability. Now, I know in a perfect world, you want to have both, someone that you really connect with, you really trust, and is really, really, really good at what they do. But that may not always be the case. So which one would you put more weight on? The likability, the connection, the trust, or the really, really, really high ability to get the end result you're looking for? If you had to choose one.
Yeah, yeah, that's tough. I it, I always tell clients you want to go with someone who's reputable, who's known in the community for having knowledge of what they're doing, but also having a good reputation within the community. And I think those things are built upon both of those factors, both the being cordial, being respectful, being responsive, and then also having that knowledge base where you know that the attorney knows what they're doing and they're able to push a case forward. And it's also really important because different attorneys work in different ways. And so having someone who's well versed in your community to know how other attorneys work. I know when I was a partner at a large law firm for many years, we would have cases against, most everyone in town, and so we would be able to share that knowledge of, okay, how do they work best. And so really being able to try and understand the opposing counsel's style to be able to reach an effective resolution for your client.
Got it. Okay. And how do you approach setting expectations for your clients? Because I think that setting the right expectations is critically important to this entire process. But how do you approach that so that they feel informed, support? I'm sure that there's a lot of things that's going to come up that they just didn't realize. That's just normal part of this process.
Yeah, again, it's I think communication again is the number one factor, and just letting clients know. I try and give them a 30, 60, 90 day status line so they know what's coming down the pike so that there's no surprises. So within the next 30 days, we're going to get some discovery. We're going to have to respond to discovery, which are basically questions in support of your case, where you have to provide all facts, witnesses, documents. And then, in 90 days, we're looking at taking some depositions. And then hopefully within 6 months, we'll have the case ready to go to mediation. So I think giving that advanced timeline, or at least a window looking, so that the clients can foresee what's coming in the future, in the near future, I think that really helps providing that information for them.
Got it. Okay. Now, Kelly, throughout your experience, I'm sure you've worked on a lot of cases. I'm sure that there were some that were very memorable, either good or bad, and I'm sure that there were some that were challenging as well. But is there maybe one story that you can share of just one of those cases and how you were ultimately able to get them a successful outcome in the end?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've seen some cases during my litigation days where um, senior level managers did really some pretty awful things. Communications with subordinates that just were not professional, were completely inappropriate, and over company phones. So once we were able to access the company phones and see the information that the high level manager was sharing, that was pretty eye opening, and really led the company to have to implement disciplinary procedures against the employee, um, and and certainly it also led to a different settlement resolution, because at that point the company clearly knew that there was significant liability, and just trying to figure out how to lessen the impact of that.
Okay. Okay. And when it comes to the future, I mean, where do you think the future of employment law is going? Like, is there any changes people are willing to pay attention to?
Yeah, I think AI is going to impact all attorneys. I do think I'm hoping that it's going to make it more streamlined. I know as far as when it comes to workplace investigations, having it, but it's extremely important to have a completely confidential, closed-in database where you can input the information and know that your data is safe. I think that's the biggest unknown for most attorneys right now with AI, is just, okay, if you input the information, where's it going to end up?
Mm.
And so really trying to get a good understanding of where your data could end up is going to be crucial, and is really a focus of mine that my concern of using AI is just the confidential nature of it, and if the data is going to remain confidential. So I think figuring out, watching the AI world progress, I think is really going to be interesting to see, but it's coming whether we like it or not. And so really trying to get on the train, so that you're not left at the station.
Okay. And with the future in mind, when it comes to your practice, like what's your vision for your practice?
Yeah, the more that I've been doing workplace investigations, the more I realize I really like helping companies and employees resolve disputes. So, I, as a workplace investigator, your job is to uncover facts and present the facts. But my specialty, I think, has been in looking at outside the box resolutions. Okay, what is it going to take to, what is the heart of the issue? And so for me, I'm really focused on mediations, on resolution of concerns. So trying to get resolution to workplace disputes before they blow up into very lengthy litigation matters, because again, I feel like in litigation no one wins, and so trying to get those claims resolved before it ends up in litigation really has been my goal, and what I foresee continuing to do in the future.
Got it. Okay, awesome. Well, Kelly, I do have one last question for you, but before I ask it, I do want to point people to your website at gemelliemploymentlaw.com.
Yep,
Now,
that's it.
okay, now last question for you, Kelly. What does peace of mind mean to you?
Oh goodness, as attorneys, I don't know that we ever have peace of mind. As I've been getting older, I'm really trying to put my mind, days, carve out time in my day where I try and think of nothing, where I don't have a million things running through my head at all time, but really just trying to enjoy the simple things in life. Right? When you're younger, you think, what does that mean? That sounds boring. But as you get older, you really can appreciate, whether it's the birds chirping or the waves crashing or flowers blooming, just simple things like that bring you joy. But also being able to help a client be able to reach a resolution so that they can move forward with their life. That also, it always feels so good when you're able to help a client find that resolution so that they are at peace with moving forward. That also, makes me feel good and makes me feel that I've been able to help someone in a positive way.
Okay, well, there you have it. Kelly sharing your expertise. So Kelly, where can people contact you and your practice?
Yeah, so best thing, go to my website, gemelliemploymentlaw.com. Feel free. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Kelly Gemelli with a G, and reach out to me. Both my email and phone number are available. Kelly at gemelliemploymentlaw.com. My phone number is also available. Feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to help if I can.
Awesome. Well, Kelly, this was great. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for sharing your expertise.
All right. Thanks so much, Daniel.
Thanks for listening to the Verdict Signal podcast. Any questions? Please contact the practice directly with the contact information provided during the show. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now.